This presentation was developed for the Pakistan Society of Industrial Engineers. Thank you very much for the opportunity to join with you and share some of my thoughts on entrepreneurial engineering, and specifically on the development of commercial opportunities in the engineering discipline. So can I move the screen? Next slide, please. Next slide.
Can you see that? Can you see the next slide?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay.
So basically, what is entrepreneurial mindset? Now, there are many definitions for this, but I've chosen this particular definition because it really focuses on the engineers that are equipped with an entrepreneurial mindset are able to assess the bigger picture, allowing them to recognize opportunities, evaluate markets, and learn from their mistakes. They are capable of more than just solving technical problems. They are constantly looking for unexpected ways to create value. I want to mention that the creating value is probably the most important. Engineers must think about their role in creating value. Next slide. Now, a broader definition of entrepreneurship itself is the pursuit of an opportunity beyond the resources one currently controls. So you may not have all of the resources, not just the financial resources, but other resources, the human resources, technological resources. However, you may see an opportunity and you may do something about this. This is what Howard Stevenson from the Harvard Business School over at Harvard University, this is what he considers to be entrepreneurship in general. Next slide. Next slide.
So can you see the next one?
Yeah, they should be able to see this. Make sure. So generally, when we think about engineering skills and we talk about opportunity to business, that means the creation of venture. We think about an engineering curriculum, no matter where it is in the world, that would have certain or specific categories in which it would focus. Some of them are core, some of them are not core. So as you look at this diagram that is developed by Keen, the Current Entrepreneurial Education Network, you will see the courses that have a red dot at the corner. You should be able to see these. You see these ones with the red dots? Everyone looking at these?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, these are not traditional engineering courses. However, they are being offered to build the entrepreneurial mindset. And if you wanted to take any one of the examples, you could take the example of identifying an opportunity, investigating a market, creating a preliminary business model. All of these are very important. The validation process. So when we think about traditional engineering courses, what do we think about? We think about courses that may be outlining or identifying the problem, using the scientific method, whatever it may be, determining the design requirements, all of these courses that do not have a red dot. So I wanted you to be aware is as you look at your engineering curriculum, does it include components that are so critical to developing the entrepreneurial mindset in the engineering discipline? I guess that's a rhetorical question, but maybe not so. I mean, you really have to think about what are you doing to foster entrepreneurial thinking within the engineering discipline and even within the industrial engineering program. Next slide. Next slide. Here we go. So the essence of the entrepreneurial mindset has three cornerstones. These cornerstones were developed by the Kern Entrepreneurial Education Network, or KEEN. And many universities were involved, initially probably 30 to 40 universities. And they developed the threes: the curiosity, then demonstrating the constant curiosity about the changing world, exploring the constraints, and the view of accepted solutions, and the ability to connect, integrating information from many sources, not just one or a few, assessing and managing risk, very, very important. We can talk more about that in just a moment. And of course, most important, the creation of value, identifying unexpected opportunities to create extraordinary value, and persisting through and learning from failure. All of these are cornerstones of the entrepreneurial mindset. So the mindset is what we're talking about, the behavior of the engineering mind. Now, whether we can jump in with some questions as I get through this, if you have a question, it's really you want to ask, then go ahead. Now, there are complementary skill sets. We're talking about developing skill sets. So here are a list of skill sets and the opportunity, the design, and the impact. So you can take a look at any one of these, and we'll talk more about the identification of the opportunity, how to investigate it, how to create it, and how to evaluate that opportunity, test it, and obviously continue to assess, as well as determining the design, the platform, and analyzing and developing and creating and validating the design. The validation process in this entrepreneurial mind is extremely important. And we're going to help by identifying the tools to actually validate an idea. In addition to that, the impact of communicating, your ability to communicate is extremely important. Written communication, oral communication, very important, and communicating and working within a group dynamic. How much group learning will actually happen within your curriculum, within Pakistan and universities? Not sure, but we do quite a bit of this here. And in our university at Lawrence Tech and others throughout the United States. The ability to develop these and validate, as well as that entire process. So here you will see a broader definition of curiosity, connections, and creating value. So I think that it is important as you think about creating value and curiosity. Sometimes I will ask my students, tell me, why did you even think about entering the world of engineering? Well, it is a world with accelerating change. Today's solutions are often obsolete tomorrow. And since discoveries are made by the curious, we must empower our students to investigate a rapidly changing world with an insatiable curiosity. So curiosity is very important. And discoveries, however, exist only if we reach out and teach our students to habitually pursue the knowledge and integrate it with our own discoveries. There are discoveries that students have in their own world that often can result in maybe revealing innovative solutions. And of course, the most important is the ability to create value and develop innovative solutions. Most meaningful when they are creating the extraordinary value. That's what we're trying to do, create extraordinary value. And students must understand how important that is to create this value. Here you have a interesting diagram which talks about all three of the curiosity, the connections, and the creation of value. So you can see, interesting enough, curiosity talks about identifying customer pains. And we're going to talk about that will lead into my discussion of pain storming in just a moment. the accessibility of simulations and ethnographic and everything in the customer's workplace, curiosity experiences, and relating to the customer, and forming teams around which design can happen. So you can see our ability to observe, to simulate experiences with potential for engineering design, employ market research and outcomes-driven economy. So here we have the basis upon every which one of these that I've talked about and reviewed. So you can see what curiosity and how critical curiosity is. Next slide. The connections and the discoveries, as we mentioned earlier, integration, and of course, the ability to create value. So kind of a broad brush of what is the entrepreneurial mindset? Well, all of the words that you're seeing here, creativity, determination, passion, taking risk, innovation, vision, being passionate, committing to action, any one of these, really, this is what it's all about. This is about the entrepreneurial mind and consistently thinking about what we're doing there. Okay, why don't we move on? Next slide. So there are many opportunity recognition tools. Some of you may have used brainstorming, heuristic, Gordon method, the scientific method, focus groups, and painstorming. I've chosen to focus on painstorming, and this is a tool I often use in my class to develop ideas and recognize opportunities. Painstorming is the process of uncovering pain to drive breakthrough innovations. I want to stress the term breakthrough innovations. These are really new innovations, completely new. Instead of jumping to solutions, painstorming uses the fundamental drivers of supposed to be new opportunities. Next slide. So what are the pains? Pains describe anything that annoys your customer during, after, trying to get a job done, simply prevents them from getting the job done. So these pains are also risks, that is potential for bad outcomes related to getting the job done badly or not at all. The source for this is the Osterwilder book, Value Proposition Design. This is something I recommend very highly to our students. We use this as a resource, and I recommend it, and it will completely explain what is known as value proposition design. So what are your customers? Remember, there are pain causers and pain relievers. This is so you solve the pain. Can I go back one slide, please? So I've described what the pains are. So now we want to relieve the pain. So we talk about the pain, next slide, and this is a pain gainer. So we're going to relieve that pain. Gains describe the outcomes and benefits the customer will want. Some gains are required, expected, or desired, and some would surprise the customer. Gains include functionality, utility, social gains, positive emotions, and cost savings, among a few. Next slide. The pain reliever or the solution. We will describe how your product or service creates customer gains or relieves the pain the customer is experiencing. This is what we want to do. We want to relieve that pain that the customer is having. I want to take just a moment here to pause. Everything that we're talking about here revolves around the customer. Traditionally, the engineering mind does not engage the customer. I cannot stress that enough. Next slide. So the next slide is basically what pains you. So in my engaging the students, I ask the students, look at what is on the screen. Is it a glitch? Is it a hitch? Is it a difficulty, a snag, a fear, a worry, a trouble, a concern, a trepidation, a jerry-rig? What actually concerns you? Is it an impediment? Any one of these things. What bugs you? What really is bothering you? That's a pain. It may pain you, but it may pain someone else. It may pain many people. Next slide. So here was a pain. You go to the airport, you want to get on an airplane, and guess what? Your luggage weighs too much. Well, of course, now we have a scale that's built in the luggage. Next slide. So you want to carry water. Well, you're carrying water, you turn on a faucet and you've got water. In this situation, that didn't happen. So what we had to do is carry the water. Look how difficult this is. Can you imagine how much each one of these water jugs weigh? This is still happening in the world today. What was the solution? Very simple solution. Next slide. The solution is the invention of the cue drum. And you can see this young man pulling the cue drum with a rope. Yes, the rope can break, but it's very simple. Next slide. The world of innovation. Before I get into this, I want to make a comment. Can you take me back 3 slides to the scale, please? That slide, hold this. Now you'll notice this luggage has wheels. I don't know if there's anyone that I'm speaking with can remember when luggage did not have wheels. Is there anybody out there that can remember that? I don't know. I guess maybe I may be the only one who remembers when luggage did not have wheels. So how did it happen that luggage and wheels came together? When did that happen? Well, again, that was truly a breakthrough, and it all resulted from a man going through an airport, hauling a heavy object on a dolly with wheels. And this man said, why don't we put wheels on luggage? That happened in the mid-70s. And I remember the mid-70s very well. So again, I remember hauling luggage to an airport or in a train when other people would have to carry the luggage for us. Okay, you can move ahead. Okay, so here is a Model T Ford. About 10, 15 miles from here, where I'm sitting, the Model T Ford came off of an assembly line on Piquette Street in Highland Park, which is kind of an area near Detroit, very close to Detroit. Now, what would Henry Ford say when he was talking to the customers? What did he hear? Well, his customer, potential customer, would say, I really do not want this thing. I really want a faster horse. So forget about this, the Model T, an automobile. Just give me a faster horse and everything will be fine. Well, Henry Ford went ahead and put this together. And of course, the rest is history. Next slide. So if you look at this slide, and how many of you remember when you were using film rather than digital? Okay, your hand is up. That's great. That's great. That's wonderful. Azeem, you're really with us. So when you look at this slide, you look at Polaroid, you look at Kodak, you look at BlackBerry. So what do these companies have in common? What did they miss? Well, it's kind of interesting what they missed. So I guess if I was asking you the question, what about Kodak? What about Polaroid? What do they have in common? So when do you think the digital chip was invented? And who invented it? I know most of you are muted. You can't respond, but let's think about that. And if you want to, you can respond because it's a very important question and it pertains to the entrepreneurial mind.
Uh, Let me just jump in here. If anybody wants to participate, you can unmute yourself and you can respond to the questions posed by the speaker. So I have allowed everybody to unmute themselves, but obviously just try to manage it. So who is going to unmute themselves? So we have a
Yeah, you
raise
have
of
a
raised.
question.
Yeah, we
I
have a
would,
raise of hand. We
yeah,
have a raise of hand
yes.
by Muhammad Hasnan Tahir.
These companies have these exactly.
Mohammed, I cannot hear you.
Hello,
Yes, Mohammed.
can you hear me now? Yes, these companies have missed the change. They didn't change themselves according to the requirement of the customer.
Okay. So are you telling me, or do you have the answer to the question, when was the digital chip invented and who invented it? Do you know the answer?
No, I'm not answering this question. I'm answering that what did these companies missed. So I'm
I
telling
don't
you
quite
about
understand. Maybe you can help me understand the question or comment.
Basically what he means is that all of these companies that you just mentioned,
Yeah.
what they missed in their era was that the chip was invented, and obviously the customers were now looking at towards a new revolution, a new technology. So
Mhm.
but these companies did not uh, develop themselves according to the changing time, which is why they sort of worn out. That's
Yes.
what I think he's mentioning.
Yes. Okay. I'm sorry for not quite understanding, but yes, that is true. But who actually invented the
that. Okay,
digital
sure,
chip
sure,
and
sure.
when was it invented? Do you know the answer to that? Well, I will tell you, two engineers walked into the office of their supervisor, one of the management of a company called Kodak, and they said, we have something to show you. And it is so interesting that our customer will no longer need film. And what do you think the management of Kodak had to say to these two engineers in 1976 or 77? You think they loved it or they embraced him, or did they say something and kicked him out of the office? Of course,
Must
they
have,
kicked him
They
out of the
definitely kicked
office
them out.
because 90% of the revenue of Kodak was from film. Kodak bought a company called Eastman. Eastman was a chemical company. The chemicals were used to process film. There is the innovation. They were sleeping. Their engineers were not innovative. There we go. And the same thing, BlackBerry, what happened to BlackBerry? Might have spent an additional amount of time, but you get the idea. You get the idea of what we're saying. So let's have the next slide. So industrial engineering opportunities, when you think about opportunities in industrial engineering, what are some of those opportunities? Obviously, I couldn't include all of them, but just as a way of a teaser, the reduction of manufacturing waste, hospital patient processing improvement, quality assessment process improvement, supply chain and logistics timing and performance, industry 4.0 system integration process, the reduction in food processing waste. So these are just ideas. I'm sure you and your students may have other ideas if we use pain storming. Where's the pain? What's the pain causer? What's the pain reliever? These are specifically related to industrial engineering opportunities. Next slide. So the tool that is used to validate an idea is called a business model canvas. It was developed by Osterwald and Pigno as part of a dissertation, a doctoral dissertation, and it has become a world classic. It is used in engineering schools and business schools, and by industry. It has 9 blocks, the components, beginning with the customer segments and, of course, the value proposition. In my class, Entrepreneurial Mindset for Engineers, we have the students develop an idea or a problem statement. The problem statement is the value proposition. What problems need to be solved and what product or service does it best? So you can see all the components. My question would be, is the College of Engineering in your industrial engineering program using the Canvas to validate the ideas they may have? If not, maybe this should be considered. This is a full-blown diagram of the Canvas. And in the assignment that is due next Wednesday in my class, the student groups of 3 or 4 people in a group have created a company from an idea, and they must validate their idea using the business model Canvas. Now, I welcome the opportunity to take specific questions about the Canvas, but the centerpiece of the Canvas is the value proposition. And I think we need to say that the value proposition is a promise of value to be delivered in its primary reason someone should buy from you. In short, a value proposition is a clear statement that explains how your product solves problems or improves the current state of relevancy. It delivers specific benefits that are quantifiable, and it tells the ideal prospect why they should buy from you and not from the competition. Very, very important. So I can't quite see the slide off to the side, but that's okay. Now, this is what is called a value proposition canvas, not a business model canvas, but a value proposition canvas developed by the same author, by the author Alex Osterwilder. And this is from Value Proposition Design that I mentioned earlier. So you see the relationship between the customer and the product. This diagram does it very well. And of course, on the bottom and the right, are there substitutes for this product? And if there are, what are they? So the customer is thinking about their wants, their fears, and their needs. And of course, in developing your idea, you're thinking about the benefits, the features, and the experience. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. Examples of commercialization. I happen to get these from Purdue University. These are some actual ideas and ideas that were commercialized or in the process of commercializing. And you can see some of the ideas, not all of them, of course, and relate to what you may be thinking about. But look at this. Reducing the length of time in a theme park, designing the admissions procedure in a hospital, developing prototypes for car adapters, designing clothing warehouse using computer simulations, developing hardware protection, spacecraft, converting airline production to lean manufacturing. All of these ideas. I hope they're helpful to you in stimulating your mind. And after all, Azeem, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And we do not want to waste any of the minds there at your universities and in your country. We want the minds, the right side of the minds, to go to work. And if you don't exercise them, you'll lose them. Examples of commercialization. Create a quality assistance program for a national restaurant chain. Prevent worker injuries with an ergonomic intervention. Make customer service more efficient at an electronics company. Launch a material handling system for new automobiles. And develop a conceptual layout of a dockyard. Ideas in industrial engineering discipline. Next slide. Do you go back one? Okay. Um, I want to stress the importance of intellectual property. My lack of knowledge of the use of intellectual property in Pakistan, you will see, is quite evident. So I can't address that, but I will say if your students can go out online and look at the United States Patent and Trademark Office and look at this as a primary resource to determine if prior art exists, meaning does a patent exist on their idea already? If so, take a look at it. And the Google can, or it should say, Google is also an alternative source. Evaluate the extent of patents that have been issued and the claims that are stated in the document. Is the existing patent close to similar to your idea? These are all questions I think that you would need to ask. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. Preparing for incubation. Now, this is something, Azeem, we talked about on the phone a little bit about incubation, if you recall. And of course, I was listening very carefully to you. And the important point is, I think, for the engineer to continue to engage the customer in their research and validation process, to develop a prototype for customer engagement, and to refine the prototype based on the customer feedback. Determine if incubation is the next step for your process, and if so, move forward with the incubation process. And this step should include the creation of an entity or a legal entity. How that works in Pakistan, I do not know, but I'm just speaking for some type of an entity. And as you enter incubation and the incubation center that already exists, you can start this process fairly early with little or minimal capital. Okay, next slide. So preparing for launching the business. So based on the validation process that we've used using the Canvas and other tools and the results, we can, of the incubation process, we can move forward with the development of a roadmap or a business plan to launch the company. Must make it very clear, the business model canvas is not a business plan. It is a validation process. If funding is required, identify the funding resources that are available, debt or equity, whether it's going to be debt, equity, and or equity, meaning their own money or bringing investors and giving up some of the ownership of the company. Move forward with the launch using a timeline that was prepared, part of the business plan. This includes the identification of people, the resources that are required. Okay, we're wrapping this up. Next slide. So this is kind of a summary of the action steps. Move forward with securing a physical location if necessary. Determine the legal structure upon which to operate the company. Obtain sales from customers identified with a business model canvas, and begin operations on the projected date. So this is sort of an idea or a timeline that would be developed to launch the company. So with that, next slide, we're concluding here. Next slide. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Really appreciate it. I'd like to get as much interaction. You've been very quiet, and I would love you to unmute and ask questions. I really sincerely hope this has been helpful to you and has been thought-provoking and stimulating. I hope you can take some of these ideas with you and start the journey.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Reimer. Indeed, it was very thought-provoking, and it will definitely open our minds to exploring new ventures and new ideas. Before we move on to questions, my personal question to you, you talked about customer focus. So if there is a company right now or a startup that has developed a product, and I have heard that usually the engineers, they are in romance with their products. So what they
Yes.
do is that they they want to keep spending time on improving the design of the product without looking at what the customer actually wants. So
Exactly.
what are your thoughts on that? Whether if we have a prototype which is not fully developed,
Yes.
but it fulfills the requirements of the customer to the least, would that be sufficient to go on with the launch or not?
No, it's not. Not sufficient to go on with a launch. In fact, if you go on with a launch, you're going to make mistakes and it's going to be very expensive. You hit the nail right on the head, so to speak. You need to get out and you need to say to that engineer, I'd like you to interview a minimum of 100 potential customers. You need to develop a questionnaire. The questionnaire will talk about the specific activities. Are they asking the customer, are we relieving your pain points? If you were to review the value proposition design, it will go through all of the pain points and a structured questionnaire. It doesn't have to be lengthy. It could be 5 to 7 questions. And get that feedback from the customer. Show them that crude prototype. Then ask questions about it. And then get the feedback and then refine. Then get the feedback, then refine. And then you're going to get down to something that really excites the customer. So I think you're quite correct, but I think engineers in general are reluctant to go out and get out of the classroom, get out of their chair, and engage the customer. Today, with technology, you can engage the customer using like SurveyMonkey or other ways, and you can do it online. I am an old-fashioned type guy, or well-seasoned, if you want to use that term, and I like to talk to the customer if possible, face to face. I like to see their behavior. I like to get some feedback. And again, during COVID, this is difficult, but I'm saying normally this is what you would do. And I have done that. My students have done that, and it is revealing. So hopefully I've answered your question.
Right. Thank you.
Professor,
I think you know the answer. You knew the answer, but maybe I helped you.
No, I wanted to know your views. I do know some of the answer, but I wanted to know your views
Okay.
to it because I'm part of a startup right now where we're just working on our product. So I just wanted to know whether we are on the right track or not. So now I would like to. Okay, so Azan, you can unmute and ask your question.
Okay, before we unmute, I want to show you the, can everyone see this book?
Yes. Yes.
See this?
Value proposition design.
This is the book. This is what I've been talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Azan, you can ask your question.
Okay,
Go ahead.
great. Hello, Professor. I really enjoyed your session and the info you gave us. One thing that I want to touch on was the brainstorming that you mentioned. My background is from textiles, and for the past 6-7 years, I've been working with textile manufacturers who have been working with US and European buyers, more or less Walmart and Targets and IKEAs. And these are the kind of companies that are actually driving a lot of good initiatives in the form of Lean and Six Sigma. They're pushing suppliers to do better in terms of delivery, in terms of quality. So we're always engaged in Lean projects, in continuous improvement projects. But I do see that a lot of companies, lose track in actually trying to find solution rather than focusing on the problem. I at times find this a little problematic that people tend to look for, you could say, bookish solutions that are already out there. If I was to give an example of Lean, everybody's going out there to improve productivities at their respective facilities, but nobody looks at the value stream, nobody looks at the supply chain, the alignment of capacities and other issues. So
Yes.
brainstorming, would you recommend any particular tool? Because when I talk about brainstorming, we're familiar with that. We do root cause analysis activities.
Yeah.
We use the
Brainstorming
Chicago
is,
diagram. But
yeah. I understand the question. You're right. It's brainstorming is very customer focused. And when you talk
Yeah.
about engaging the stuff, brainstorming has great limitations. And one of its limitations, I'm not saying it shouldn't be used, But when you have 5 people or 8 people in a room and you're brainstorming, the question is who's in the room? What are their backgrounds? What are their skills? What is their knowledge? But the brainstorming is a customer focused, and you really have to think about the customer and really think differently. Like you, and that really is think like an entrepreneur. Really get very deep in your conviction and your behavior. There are opportunities all around us. There is something called the science of innovation. I did not have the time to talk about it in the slides, but you must recognize that innovation is a science and it can be learned. The question I would have, if you were looking at your country or around the world, what would you consider to be the most innovative countries in the world, and how would you measure them? And if not countries, companies. And why are those companies innovative? So I did not get a chance to talk about this either. There is a study that was funded by the National Science Foundation in the United States, and it was Penn State University and Purdue University, and they developed a validated instrument to measure innovativeness in the engineering discipline. Very, very interesting. It was published in the American Society of Engineering Education. So there are 20 characteristics. So you really have to say, are we talking about developing ideas that are breakthroughs? Most of them are really enhancements, as you have so aptly mentioned, of existing ideas, existing or prior art. So again, sometimes it takes time. And as I traveled around the world with the IEOM Society, and I learned so much. And thanks to Dr. Ali, I learned even more. I learned about the societies, and I learned how maybe different people think differently. They're not thinking exactly, and they see the opportunity, but they don't recognize it's in front of them, but they don't do anything about it. And that really kind of puzzles me. So it may be something as simple if having, I mean, it may be in the room, you're sitting and you're looking at it, and what can I do? And somebody else recognizes and do something. As you know, intellectual property now is first to file. So it's like that in all parts of the world. So I don't know, kind of a long answer to your question, maybe confusing, but I understand exactly. Reaching out to your collaboration is what I think your point is well taken. You're reaching out, you're collaborating, you're partnering, and I think that's fabulous.
Okay, so Azan, I hope you got your answer.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, I did.
All right.
I just want to add a little
Sure.
input on that. As far as our industrial engineering university curriculums are concerned, I think out of the 40 plus courses, the only course I remember that really got us close to that was business process engineering. Other than that, we're normally only focused on, okay, this is the current process. How can we make it better? How can we make it better? Nobody tries to get out of that box and, look at it in a different way. We were not well equipped with that. That's something where our education constantly needs to look at.
Okay, I think that's important. I think you raised a very important point, and I think it's absolutely correct.
Right. So, okay, now, so Tahir, you have written in the chat box that you want to ask a few questions. So the room is open for you now. If you want to ask a question, unmute yourself and post your question.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Azeem, for giving me a chance to ask the question from Professor Donald. Professor Donald, I hope you can hear me clearly.
I can hear you.
Okay. I really like the idea of brainstorming that you just presented to generate new ideas for startups. But judging by your age, I know that you have a lot of experience. And when we are starting as an entrepreneur, we make a lot of mistakes. And
Yes.
from your experience, please share what mistakes are most common that are made by the entrepreneurs when starting out.
I'll try to do this in a few words, but what you have posed to me is very challenging. I think there's really, failure is not bad. Learning from failure is important. Shouldn't be making the same mistakes, but you will make mistakes. You will fall down and you will pick yourself up. And I think Alva Edison inventing the light bulb, many times he failed is he learned all of the ways not to do things. I think the entrepreneurial mind, my research is on the entrepreneurial child. I do not know if any of you are married or have children, but the entrepreneurial mind goes in many different directions at the same time. So I would say a lack of focus is a major problem for the entrepreneur. Goes in too many different directions at the same time and does not take the energy that he or she has and develops that idea. Secondly, I would say not developing or validating an idea to the point where I actually emphasized in this presentation through some type of a process. And as industrial engineers, we're very process oriented. So the business model canvas is a structured process. So not doing this, so you're not validating this at all. I mean, it really is not a good situation in terms of validation. So I would say that that in addition to not having an idea, they failed to develop a roadmap, some kind of a plan to achieve. And I would say the next one would be not letting go and building a company. It's all about yourself. You have an ego that destroys yourself and everybody around you. You want to do it all yourself. That is a major problem. So this is what I would say would be a problem for you. So I think that bringing others together is a very interesting example. There's a book that I read, and somebody that I bring to my class, somebody who's very well known, and his name is W. David Tarver. He wrote a book entitled Proving Ground. In that book, he talked about his journey as an electrical engineer working for a major company called Bell. It was a company in New Jersey. They were very innovative. He left the company and created his own company. And he talks about that journey in selling the company eventually for $30 million. So 11 years after its founding. So that particular story, I think, is certainly a good story to follow. So I don't know. That's my response to your question.
Okay, that's quite a good response. But also, I wanted another question. I want to ask another question from you.
Yes.
Now that you have brought it up, can you highlight the importance of professional networking in entrepreneurship? Because the way I see, most young people don't understand the importance of professional relationships.
Well, that goes under the term of connections and getting together with people you know. And when I first launched my company, and this was in the 70s. I mean, I launched my company in the 70s and early 80s. I had a network of people that I worked with. I had a network of professionals, accountants, attorneys, consultants, and also a network of other entrepreneurs. So, you know, I value that. And I think your point's well taken. There are organizations one is called the CEO, Collegiate Entrepreneurs Organization. There are organizations even here at our IEOM Society, our professional chapter. Think about your own alums. Are there alums at your universities who have created successful businesses and who are engineers? Bring them to your IEOM chapter meetings. Network with them. Go out on the internet, and there's so many resources out there today to network even virtually. in today's environment. I don't really know that much about Pakistan and who the leading entrepreneurs are in your country. But again, you are reaching out to Europe and other parts of the world. And of course, IU1 Society, and maybe you're teaming with the Pakistan Society of Industrial Engineers, we can do some things together. So collaboration is really the word, and joining these organizations. And I do not know what's available to you within Pakistan.
Okay, Professor. And can you also highlight this point? Sorry, my questions are just getting more and more, but since you are an experienced
Well, my
professional here.
responses will be more and more. So that's okay. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. In the past decade, especially in the decade we are currently in, we've seen many young people dive more and more into entrepreneurship. What is causing these people to dive into entrepreneurship rather than working in with a company? Do you think it is driven by monetary gains, or they are trying to copy the billionaires or do?
Wow. You know how to ask questions, all right. I'm trying to frame an answer, a response to you. Maybe there's another way of you stating it in fewer words. Can you restate in fewer words what you're really asking me to respond to? Could you restate that one more time?
Oh, that is really hard for me, but I'll try. Okay. I want to ask that in this decade, we've seen many people to go for entrepreneurship rather than for a job. From your perspective, what is causing these people to go for entrepreneurship instead of a job?
Okay. All right. Now I know you did a good job. Don't be hard on yourself. That's great. Now I fully understand what you're asking about. Okay. I will make this statement to you, and maybe you will fully understand the idea of entrepreneurship has a number of specific reasons why people want to do it, but timing is everything. Often young people want to do this because they're looking for independence, not dependence. They do not want somebody else controlling their life. They want to be in control rather than have others controlling them. So they look at entrepreneurship and they think about, maybe I can do this on my own, but I'm not quite ready. They do not know they're ready. They fear not. And they go into this world of entrepreneurship. And in doing so, they are not prepared. On the other hand, if you work for a company, learn as much as you can, and develop relationships, and then go out into the world. In the book Proving Ground, David Tarver proved this exact concept when he went out on his own to develop a product to test cell phone signal strength. And that was done in the 90s. So what I'm saying is that this really what happens, but a job, think about this for a moment, it's going to be thought-provoking, is what I call the journey. JOB is the journey of the broke. You do not own it. You do not control it. It is not your life. It's somebody else's life. You cannot sell it because you have no ownership in it. So I think with that in mind, young people will get excited and say, maybe I can build something for myself. I'm really good. Why am I doing it for somebody else? I'd rather do it for myself. However, the timing may be wrong, and they may not be ready, and they may not even know it. Did I answer your question?
Yes, Professor, you did it quite well.
Thank you.
Okay, one more question, just last one. Am I allowed?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, sure, Tahir. We have a couple of minutes.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Professor. A few moments ago, one of my colleagues asked you a question, and you brought up innovation. Now, speaking of innovation, I wanted to ask a question about it, or rather, I want you to highlight your perspective on it. I've seen that many of the large corporations, they are not innovative as compared to the small firms that are just starting out.
Yeah.
Even if we open the books of the history, we can see that such as IBM was superseded by Microsoft in terms of technology, innovation, etc. So, what do you think? Why is it that large corporations do not innovate anymore? And why do you think that small companies are more effective than large corporations?
There's numbers of reasons why these companies are more innovative, and the behavior of the people and the engineers. I am going to almost insist that you read the research that was done at Penn State University and Purdue and presented to the American Society of Engineering Education on innovativeness in the engineering discipline. If a company has 1,000 engineers, you were asking yourself the question, of the 1,000 engineers, how many of those 1,000 engineers are truly innovative? And the answer would be very, very few. And the point of the matter is that we're really not teaching the science of innovation. If I said to you, a company like Hyundai Kia, LG Electronics, and I don't know, maybe a couple of others like Samsung. Why is that company so innovative? Why is 3M so innovative? And why Apple? You know, in terms of what is there? Is it the water they drink? It's the way they wear their clothes. Is it something else? Is it the way they look? I mean, maybe they have something in their appearance. Maybe it's the clothes. Who knows? None of those things. They've learned the science of innovation. They've learned and understand the concept of ideality. They haven't learned. They haven't taken the time to learn. And the engineers, and I think it was mentioned earlier, well, we'll just make something better. We'll just make it better. We'll just enhance it. So innovation is really, it has 69 different definitions of what the innovate. You ever go to a conference and a speaker stands up and in front of you and says, we really need to innovate because we need to innovate. So let's innovate because we need to innovate. So let's innovate now. Do they talk about the process of innovation? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's a science. It's a process. You're an industrial engineer. Learn the process. Learn the science of innovation. Learn why South Korea was flat on its back, had nothing. Where is it now? How did it come back from the brink of nothing? And I was at an IEOM conference, and I think it was maybe Dr. Leo will remember, and we met, was it Dr. Park? I met Dr. Park, and he shared with me so much about Korea and Samsung, and he was there when Hyundai began its operations. So yeah, there's quite a bit that you can learn. And learning is a journey. I'm always learning. That's what I love about what I do, because my students, I learn from my students, and I learn from the world. So this has been great. I've really enjoyed it. I've had a lot of fun and really appreciate it. I'm sorry for all of the challenges that we had at the beginning, but I think hopefully it was worthwhile. I hope this experience has been good. I'd like to spend more time and obviously hear from many more. Azeem, thank you so much. Thank you, Pakistan Society of Industrial Engineering, for giving us this opportunity. And of course, I want to thank the IEOM Society for bringing all this together. I hope this will be the beginning of a journey. If I could ever be of assistance to you in the future or answer your questions, just reach out to me and I'll be glad to respond.
Thank you so much, Professor Reimer. Indeed, it was very thought-provoking, and thank you for all your responses. And I'm sure if you have any further questions, we'll communicate to you via email. And I would like to thank everybody for attending the session. And I would also like to thank Dr. Ahad for his support, for his kind support from IOM Society. We are in collaboration. And I would actually like to congratulate for the Pakistan chapter. I received the email today, which is like founded by Dr. Saad Memon from Mehran University, Jamshoro, and along with his team. I really look forward to working with them and bringing more opportunities to our industrial engineers. And I guess this is just it. If you have any further questions, I'll communicate to you. Thank you so much once again, Professor Reimer, for your
And
time,
thank
for
you,
your
Azeem. So let us maybe 1 or 2 months later, few months later, we can do another webinar on Industry 4.0 or FMEA or something. So you can figure it out. So you can
sure, definitely,
give another
definitely,
talk sometimes later. So
Join us at our
definitely.
Detroit conference.
Oh
Please
yes,
do
sure.
in
I'll be there.
August.
Yes, yes, I'll be there.
Thank you.
And okay, thank you. Okay, so this is the end of the session.
Okay. Thank you.
okay, thank you everybody. Yep.
Yep.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
bye
you.
bye, and we'll talk more later. Yeah. Okay, bye.